Hey everybody, welcome back to the Meaning Forge. Today I have another interview, and I have an interview with a special guest. His name is Oz. He is an entrepreneur and the host and co-founder of the Atheist Roundtable. He'll make it sound a lot better than I will, so I'll make sure he gets a really good chance to give that announcement through. But other than that, we'll get right into it. Hey Oz, how's it going, man?
Good, man. I love the intro. I love the transition videos, the flames, that fire.
Well, hey, it's what I'm trying to capture. So, because it's hot in the forge, right?
Hell yeah.
Forging our own meaning is not always easy and or fun.
Mm-mm.
And
Nope.
so, we'll kind of before we hop into your story, we're talking about forging in yourself, forging individuals. But keep in mind that individuals are also forged by the community in a lot of ways. So don't hesitate to to go across the whole spectrum of things. And so,
Yeah.
generally, how I like to do these things is that way we understand each other better. Is to give your story, your life story to the point. It's not perfect. That's the best part about it. And
Nope.
I hope that everything. There's a lot of insight into it that a lot of people will find relevant. So go ahead, man.
Well, first and foremost, Jim, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. And from day one, I as an atheist, I do get to meet and come across believers, Christians that I still we click, we get along, and obviously wanted to help you along the way. So I'm glad just to be here and hang out with you and chop it up with you. And as far as my story, it's kind of a winding roller coaster ride, so to speak, because there have been I would say three, maybe four now. I guess transitions or segments of my life that have been impactful and kind of developed me into the human and the man, the husband, the father that I am. And to go back to date back, my earliest memories. And when I share this a lot of times on our YouTube channel, people think I'm maybe being sarcastic or embellishing, but I'm not at all. My earliest memories are in a church building or at a baseball diamond. I was an all-state baseball player, so I spent all my time there, and then all the time that I wasn't there, all the other remaining time was at the church. So I grew up. That was just our sphere of influence, the people we hung out with, our family. Everybody was a believer, right? So why not believe? Now, why am I sharing that here? Because that's ultimately what ended up being a pivotal point to getting me where I'm at today. But to not skip ahead, so my childhood was, from the outsider's perspective, was very deceptive. My dad. My dad did a great job of providing. And we didn't have everything, but my mom and dad worked hard, and it did a good job in that sense. My mom was a praise and worship pastor for 20-something years. My dad has been in the same line of work he's been in really my entire life, or at least since I can remember. So in that regard, did a great job as parents. Now that the house that we eventually moved into, it was like your cookie cutter, like literally had a white picket fence. You would have thought from the outside, my mom and dad, my brother and I, we just had this beautiful, pretty life. And if you ever got to see, if you were a fly on the wall and you get to see within those four walls when nobody else was around, it was literal hell in there. The level of toxicity and abuse, physical, mental, emotional, psychological, all of that. It was hell. Is the best way that I could put it. And there are still things that I think of that happened to me or that I saw happen to my mom that are so vivid and will probably forever be branded or stamped in my brain, that I remember thinking I could never do this I could never do this to someone, let alone my wife or my kids, so those were, those are the things that happened. But then it was very confusing for me, especially as I started getting older and then hitting my preteens, where it was like, hold on, like we go to church every Sunday and we got hands in the air and we're praying and we're singing and we're doing all this stuff. But then when we go home, it's like I said, it's a zoo, it's a circus, it's a joke, and so I started to question the how my parents could live this lifestyle here and then justify what they were doing at home, and I really struggled with that. Then when I was about 13, no, I was 13. That's when it really stood the abuse and then the neglect of my mental health diagnosis. Well, I'm diagnosed now. Nobody had diagnosed me back there or back then, and because we were Christians in a hyper evangelical charismatic movement, it was, well, we don't go to doctors, we don't get medicine, we pray, we have faith, we give, we do all that, right? And we just believe that God eventually is going to heal you, or this. I had some people told me I had devils, You take an unmedicated 13-year-old that has the diagnosis that I have. You combine that with physical, emotional, psychological abuse, and the trauma that comes along with that. Eventually, they start to unravel, and that's exactly what I did at 13. At 13, I'd already started drinking, using drugs. Lost my virginity at 13. I just went off the track, so to speak. And that continued up through 21, 22 years old. And in that time, from the time of 13 years of age to that 21, 22, I struggled with a lot of drug addiction. I found myself in the hospital several times having to get my stomach pumped because I had either took so many pills or snorted so much cocaine that I was bleeding on the inside. I can't tell you how many fights and confrontations that I've been in simply because I was too drunk or too high to even understand what was going on, and just resulted to violence. I had some gang activity. I won't claim that I was out there gang banging, but definitely on the distribution of drugs and narcotics, I definitely was at least affiliated. And then there's a lot there that that I could share if we want to go back into that. But when I turned, some of the pivotal parts were when I turned 21, 22. Like I said, I went on a I want to say it was like a week or a 2-week bender on cocaine, and literally all that I was putting in my system was cocaine and alcohol. I wasn't eating, wasn't doing anything. That on September 13th of 2003, at the end of that bender, my birthday is a week or two after that, and the guys that I was working with at the time were like, "Let's go out for your birthday because we're not going to be able to do it on your birthday." So we went out and we literally drank and partied for 24 straight hours because that's the kind of idiots we were. And at the end of us partying, if that's what you want to call it, I got in my car and tried to drive home like an idiot, and I got T-boned by an economy dump truck. So not the little guys, the big the big boys, and it crushed just about every bone on the left side of my body. It shattered my shoulder blade, which they say is either the most difficult or the second most difficult bone in your body to break. And it didn't just break it. If you were to see the X-ray, it looks like a pane of glass that you just dropped. You just dropped it on the floor. Broke all my ribs. It collapsed my lung. They thought I had brain damage. Some Jim argue that I actually do have brain damage from it. No, I'm kidding. But it's
Yeah, you probably do at some level, but we all have brain damage. So on a serious note,
yeah, and I'm not making light of it. And there are things that I told my my wife today, that there are things I look back at now, and some of the things that I struggle with as far as memories and things like that. That there's probably something there, because when you get hit by a dump truck going 75 miles an hour, something happened there. So all that happens. I coded twice. They had to resuscitate me twice. So I was on my way to, throwing up the deuces and getting out of here. And they were able to, I was able to regain consciousness. And I remember when I woke up. When I originally woke up in ICU, I have there's wires and tubes and everything everywhere. And I have no idea what happened. I have no clue what's going on. Why am I here? Where am I at? And when I woke up, there was nobody. I'm in ICU. Nobody's in the room. My family wasn't there. There wasn't a doctor. There wasn't a nurse. And my body was in such shock. I couldn't move. I thought I was paralyzed. And I couldn't move. I'm sitting there like, what the fuck is going on right now? And I remember eventually my mom, my ex-wife now, and it might have been my aunt or my cousin came in, and they started, oh, well, the other reason you're still here is because God spared your life, and so on and so forth. And I remember thinking, it's like, all right, God, well, if I can get up and I can move, and I'm not paralyzed, I'll never do this shit again the rest of my life. I'm done. So I did that, man. I got up, was able to walk, and they ended up telling me you were not paralyzed. Your body was just in shock. You had so much going on in your body that was triggering pain that your body was just like shut down, like until we can fix some of this shutdown. And because they thought I had brain damage, they wouldn't give me pain medicine. So like I was like throbbing everywhere, and I was like, all right, I'm done. So I got cleaned up. I quit drinking. I quit snorting coke and putting it in my blunts, and any way I could use it. Like I stopped all that. Like I went clean. I stopped smoking. I like everything, and then from there, for about the next 10 years, if I wasn't a Christian, and if I wasn't doing the Christian thing the best I knew how to do it and under my best understanding, then nobody has, and nobody does, because I believed with every ounce of me that it was real. I believed with every fiber of my being that this was true, and I didn't even allow myself to. Which now that I look back at it, I think was part of the problem. I wouldn't even allow myself to question it. I was almost afraid to question it. So you do that, and I started playing drums for my brother. I'm a drummer. Became the full-time drummer, and then he asked my now ex-wife and I to take over the small groups. So we oversaw all the small groups, and it's not a small church, so it's a big responsibility. We also helped with the youth group, and in but most of the inner city ministry stuff that they did. I was usually the one that was asked to speak, and share my story of selling drugs and addiction and all that. So I would do that. So it wasn't like I was just a Sunday morning, Christian or believer. I was fully submerged in it, and had given my life to the God and the purpose. Then you fast forward to about 4 years ago, and I've always been a very inquisitive human being, person. And even when I was going through my addictions and things like that, I remember my mom's had some very serious health issues over the years. And when her and my dad divorced, some hardships financially and things like that. And it was always, have faith, God can heal, have faith, God can provide, have faith, over and over and over. And I remember even those times like, Mom, like and this woman did, her drug was church. Her drug was God. She was there. I could probably count on one hand I don't know how many baseball games and football games I played. I can count on one hand how many she showed up for, because that was her drug. That was her addiction. And I remember there was when I finally allowed myself to really question it then, because like I said, when I was younger, I did. I remember asking, messed my line of thought up there. I remember asking my mom, like, doesn't this seem like, I'm not saying it is, because at this point I don't know, but doesn't this just seem like some hocus pocus shit to you, Mom? It's like just something to make you feel better, like the placebo effect. Like that's what it feels like to me. And I would say it without even, I was saying it to her, but still wouldn't allow me to say it to myself. It was hypocritical and ironic at the same time. Then you fast forward up to, like I said, about 4 years ago, and I'd finally got to a place where maybe it took me until I was, in my early 30s for my brain to fully mature. It could have been from the car wreck, or I'm just a slow damn learner. Where I started kind of looking around me and I'm like, man, I've been hearing about this stuff my entire life. From the time I was a kid till I'm here, and everything looks and sounds the same, but nothing happens. Like everything that they say is supposed to happen never happens. Every time this God is supposed to show up, this God doesn't show up. And so those doubts started popping up. I didn't do anything proactively to go after it, but that's how it kind of started. Then I remember there was a Sunday. That Sunday, and it was one of the very, very rare Sundays that I didn't have to play drums. I didn't have to worry about a small group, responsibilities. I didn't have to worry about any youth group responsibilities. I was just in the auditorium for the entire service with nothing to do other than be a part of the service. And the music started playing. Now, anyone that knows me, I am very musically inclined. I love to write music. I love to create. And if I'm not playing drums and I'm just listening, I'm not preparing or rehearsing to play drums, I'm very in tune to lyrics and words and what are we, their hidden messages and, things like that. And I started listening to these songs and I was like, we sing this. This is awfully creepy. This is weird. And yes, this is coming, this is coming from the drummer, the guy that loves to not just drum, but to create music, write lyrics. I love writing poetry, and here I'm the one not paying attention to the music. So it's my damn fault. But I was like, this is weird, man. Like some of the stuff they're saying, I don't even know if this is in the Bible. Then my brother that morning, I don't remember what he was preaching on, and I don't remember what the verses were, but he shared 2 or 3 scripture, and I'm like, hold up. Either, and all the Christians, exactly what I mean when I say this, so please don't get offended because it's exactly how I felt. Either you're taking this, you're taking this out of context, or you have no idea who God is and what God can do. Like that was always my go-to, right? And that scenario, and that is exactly what I was like, hold on. But this time, for the first time, a third option popped up. It was that, or, either, my brother or the other people listening, you don't understand what God can do when he shows up. Or what if it's all not true? And I remember literally sitting like back in my chair, like, oh, hold on. And that day, I'll never forget it because that was the first little light bulb that went off. And I went and before I get ahead of myself, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, you know what? From the time I was a kid, I've heard my mom, my dad, my youth pastor, my brother, everybody preach all this. Not one time have I sat down with this book and read it without their interpretation, without their guidance, without the indoctrination. I've never just read it like I went and picked up a historical book off of a library shelf and read it and researched it for myself. I've never done it. Shame on me. So that day I went and bought a brand new Bible that didn't have my notes and my highlights and all that in it. And I started. And that is when all of the, everything started to fall apart. The walls started crumbling. So fast forward to today, I met Pastor Mike, and we can get into the YouTube stuff later. But I met Pastor Mike, and Pastor Mike's has been, obviously my wife has been my rock and all that. But as far as a mentor and a friend, Pastor Mike has been an incredible resource for me. Him being, he loves it when I say this, a cradle atheist. He's been an atheist his entire life. He's never held a belief. Doesn't see any good reason to hold one. that's actually has been a good thing for me because his emotions aren't tied up into his belief system like mine were. That was part of my identity. My emotions were very much invested in it, and he's helped me to not be my angry atheist stage was only about 4 months, right around there, 4 months, 5 months. And it would have been a lot longer if it wasn't for him helping me be rational and be patient, and understanding that it's okay that they still believe what you believe. You don't have to verbally slap them just because you don't agree with them, So, yeah, so for now, I'll stop it there. That's a big, big chunk of it there.
Yeah, that's a great one. And I think it's really good to where you are now, especially just because there's like, I mean, you are running the show along with Pasta Mike and most of the TART crew, um, making some really good and interesting content. So I
Thank
think
you.
Pasta Mike's like the equivalent of like a Morgan Freeman for all you guys,
Absolutely. Great comparison. Great comparison.
even including the voice.
I was about to say the voice included. Absolutely. Great comparison. Yep. And the one thing now, that I will include on that, and I kind of skip over this part of it for a reason, because I think if I talk about this when I go from my car crash to where I'm at today, it kind of messes the religious journey up. But what I do want to then now go back and talk about is that 21, 22-year-old Oz and the other things that happened there that were pivotal, not just, well, actually, they have nothing to do with I won't say nothing, have very little to do with my current lack of belief or, religious worldview stances. When, right after my wreck, when I finally healed, I had made up my mind that if I'm going to do this, I have to have a way to ground myself as far as accountability, structure. Like I have to have that because I don't have that. I've none of that in my life. I've just spent the last 10, 12, whatever years just ripping and running and doing whatever the F I wanted to do whenever I wanted to do it. Right. Um, it wasn't too far after the wreck and me healing. I'd found an ad in Craigslist of all places for a cell phone sales position. And
Hey,
my entire life, everybody had told me, dude, you need to get in sales. You need to get in sales. I'm like, man, I'll suck at sales. What are you talking about? They're like, what are you talking about? You talk to everybody. Like you would literally walk up and talk to anybody. And I was like, yeah, actually, you're right. Maybe I should try that. So I applied for that, and I won't dox him and share his name here, but I met the gentleman that was he was kind of like part owner, I guess you want to say, of a group of Verizon wireless stores, and I met with him and the guy that helped him recruit for recruiting, hiring, and training, that kind of thing. And we went through it, and I remember he looked at me and he was like, "Well, Austin, I talked to a lot of people. Why in the world do I hire you? You don't have any experience. You don't have any of that." A lot of people would come out of that have just come out of the season I came out, as far as trying to overcome addictions and all this, and trying to get a job. It's like, man, I just, a lot of people that took that as either, punch to the gut, slap in the face, whatever you want to call. And I remember I just smiled at him and I said, well, you can do this. You can hire me, and that will be the best decision you ever made. Or your competitor will hire me, and it'll be the worst decision you ever made not hiring me. And I remember he got this big grin on his face. He was like, when can you start? And he told me months later, he was like, your confidence, the way you said that, he said, I know you didn't have an experience. You hadn't been in sales at that point. You didn't even have a lick of leadership training or anything yet. He said, I saw it in your eyes, and I can see it when somebody wants something. And he said, I could see it when you told me that you want to provide the best you can for your family, that you want to be the best example of a husband and a father for your kids that you can be. He said, it was in your eyes. I could see it. You were hungry. And he said, that's why I did it. He said, other than that, I would have never hired you. I would have never hired you. You didn't look the part, because back then I didn't even know what putting dress clothes on looked like. Like, I was lucky.
Yeah,
I was lucky. I was lucky to have a damn polo laying around.
oh,
And now I dress. Well, see on YouTube, I guess there's been some episodes where I throw on some of my dress shirts because I dress fly as hell now. But yeah, I remember
not as fly as Jeff was the other night, man. Jeff, one of their co-hosts, atheist troll, weasel face. He was rocking it, man. He's rocking it.
Oh, he looks sharp. But now I'm gonna make it a point. Next time I know you're gonna be either on a show that we'll be on together, or if I know you'll be in the comments, when I say fly, Jeff ain't got nothing on me.
All right.
But no, it was so he hired me, and to this day, and I can be honest and tell you, I probably haven't talked to him in the last 3 years now. I think it is because he's a very hardcore believer, very staunch believer, and I think he feels guilty. I think he feels responsible that he wasn't able to keep me in the fold or whatever, which is ludicrous. I'd tell him that. I was like, you actually had nothing to do with it. But what that man brought to my life and helped me with, because at that point I didn't have. I mean, I had a dad, but I didn't have a dad. Like, I didn't trust my dad doing, I definitely wasn't going to take any damn advice from him at that point. And my mentor just took me under his wings and did every single thing he could do to try to help me win. And every single time he did it, it was one of those things where if you've had a mentor, somebody that's invested in your life like that, it's like everything you do, you're like, I have to do this, not 100. And I actually hate it when people say 110%, just for the record. I think it's asinine when people say it, but I'm going to say it because this is how much this is how much I wanted to make him proud. And I wanted to show him that he wasn't wasting his time and his money and all that on me. Is I gave that man 110+% every single time, because it was like, nobody else is doing this for me. Nobody else cares about me enough to invest all the time, all the money, all the resources that he does to help me. So I'll be damned if I don't give this man every single thing I can. That's not a detriment to me or my family. I'll be damned if I don't do that. So that it kept growing, and he would pull me to the side, and he would encourage me, and things like on my days off, like if he was having new hire training, I would call him. Let's say, I can't remember now, but say I was off Wednesday, Thursdays. I'd call him and say, hey, I'm just calling him mentor so I don't dox him. Hey, mentor, I'm off Wednesday, Thursday. Do you have any new hire trainings? Can I come help you? And the first time he was like, well, you're off. I was like, well, I know, I understand I'm off, but I want to learn this. Like, I want to know this. And it's those little things. He'd pull me aside. He was like, those are the things. He said, not for me, for you. Keep doing those little things. And you won't always have to do them. You don't always have to do them. But going through this process where you have to put in the work. And if you want to be better than everybody around that you has degrees, they've went to college, they've done all these things, and they have all this paper hanging on the wall that says they're smarter than you when they might not be, you have to outwork them at every single turn. Every single turn. Show up when they won't show up. Do what they won't do. So I remember that then at the end of one of the training classes there, we did hire this guy who was a super bright guy. And I still to this day have no problem with him. He was just an arrogant prick. And he tried, I'm helping again, I'm in there on a day off trying to help with new hire trainings. And he kept making little digs at me because I did share my story. And at the end of the training, when everybody was gone, my mentor was like, all right, this is what we're going to do. He said, we're going to silence these type of people. And we're going to make them have to hit a mute button. And he said, I'm going to challenge you for the next 2 years. Oh, was it 2 years? Yeah. Next 2 years, if you'll read, there's either 3 or 4, I have it written down. And I know I've told Jim this before, there's 3 or 4, but you read 3 or 4 business or leadership books a month. If you will make that dedication, at the end of that 2 years, you will have the equivalent of a business degree. So if you want it and you want to shut those people up, and then you combine that with your work ethic and the way you grind, nobody will hold a flame to you. Nobody. So I did it. I did it. And I asked him, I was like, well, I don't know any of the books. You got to tell me what the books are. and what I love about him is he bought me like half the books, to get me going. And I did that. So you do that. And then he introduced me to a couple authors that have written business and leadership books. And I kind of got to sit under some of their mentorship and their training. And you do that. The next thing you know, I go from that guy sitting taking an ad from Craigslist, interviewing for a job saying, hire me or else, to you go it wasn't very long. I want to say 4 years later, 5 years later, after he's, took me through the ringer of business and leadership, that him and I break away and we opened 5 of our own stores and we crush it. We're setting records. We're the guy that we worked with before that is pissed because we're running circles around everybody, and we're doing it the right way. We're doing it the right way. Part of the reason we broke away is because there was some shady shit going on, and we were doing everything the right way. And then you keep fast forwarding through that. Did a couple other things, entrepreneurial things there. Then I was called and then hired as a sales director for one of the largest furniture manufacturer and distributors in the world, and I did that up till last year. And now, even with the Atheist Roundtable, the entrepreneurial part, and don't get me wrong, Pasta Mike is a huge part of that, but we're still doing it today. But had I not met my mentor, 2004 or whatever it was after my wreck, I wouldn't. Jim and I, you and I wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
No, we wouldn't, man. No, it's it's pretty great, and it's really cool to hear your story, because a lot of people. So like, depending on who I talk to, or they're gonna keep one line, and I think you have really two interesting lines. Like, one is your evolution of who you are in regards to religion, and that, again, that's a whole other ball game. How you find meaning there. Versus, also this business side of you, which is still relevant. It's who you are, and that's, again, that's the point of all this too. What do you think are some like common? Am I echoing?
Not on my end.
Okay. Yes, I am echoing. Anyway, let me just turn down my sound. That might help. Okay. Anyway, gotta love technology, right?
You're good. You're good.
So, what are some common narratives, like off the top, that you see, and then I'll share what I see, if you don't mind.
Narratives, as far as what?
Like narratives, so like common themes, like motifs in your life story.
Oh, okay. Oh man, this one, this was my ADHD brain. I can't remember if it was yesterday or today. I'm pretty sure. No, it was last night before my wife went to bed. The one thing, when you go through, so the one part I didn't share is when my parents were right after their divorce. I got kicked out at 17 years old of both parents' house, and all I had was clothes. That's all I had, and I'd got a car, and I either slept in the back of my car or under a stairwell. I'd found a stairwell in this apartment complex that one stairwell or hallway happened to be heated. And I'm in northern Indiana, so it gets cold as shit up here. And that, or I found a friend's house that that I could stay at. So when you and a lot of that's all because of my own dumb decisions. So I'm not trying to make out like I was a victim or anything like that, or somebody did that to me. No, I did that to me. But that does not negate the fact that I still had to fight through it. And I remember when we were getting ready, my mentor and I were getting ready to sell our Verizon stores. And the only reason we ever sold them was Apple took over and shrunk our profit margin by like 250%, something like that. I mean, it was crazy. You might as well say we were breaking even on every phone sale. And I remember when we we're kind of packing our stuff up for this new owner to take over, and we're just reminiscing and everything. And he said, and so I'll give you the two narratives kind of in one here. He said, he said, Austin, the two things that I've watched and that I admire about you, and whether you and I ever work together in the future again or not, it doesn't matter. You're going to succeed as long as you keep your head right. You're going to succeed no matter what because of these two things. One, there's no quit. There's no quit. You don't even understand what the word lose means. And when most people think they've lost, Austin has no idea what the hell they're talking about when they say lose, because what you see that as is an opportunity to overcome and still win. And he said that is not very many people can say that. He said, and the other thing is, he said it, and part of it was joking. He said, I think part of it is your ADHD and and some of it, you have natural distractions. He said, but I can tell you, I've sat down, I've done business with, and I've signed contracts with millionaires and billionaires in my lifetime, and and that's why I say the fact that I got to be mentored by this guy. I'll tell you when we're not, we're not live anyway, are we?
But we are recording, so this will go later.
Okay, all right, so I'll wait. So I won't say where he worked. There's a funny, but this man had a lot of prestige, so it meant so much coming from him. And he said the other thing, he said, Austin, most people, and he said this includes me, and I feel like I'm a pretty good leader and I'm a pretty good businessman. He said your ability to not get distracted by all the bullshit, all the noise, all the negativity, all the drama, all the people talking, all the people whispering. He said, it's unbelievable to me because even I get frustrated by it and I want to tell them to shut up. But what do? You just keep on going. You're like the Energizer Bunny. And it's like you have earmuffs on and you don't hear anything. You don't see any of the things going on. He said, those two things, Austin, if you focus on those two things and you make sure those are always prevalent in your life, you will own everything that's in front of you. So that's kind of 2-in-1, that he gave me. And like I said, I was just sharing with my wife, and I am very proud of that. I am very proud of those two things, because there are a lot of people that either a loss means they're a victim and they don't know how to get the hell up, and they're more worried about what everybody else around them thinks, says, breathes, whispers, instead of just focusing on the task or the goal at hand and crushing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that's that's almost like, I think it's funny because you kind of like I was thinking that in a lot of ways, and it was almost like it was like implied with me. So yeah, absolutely agree with that. Like even again, most like I can't keep saying this enough. Like your work with TART along with everybody else is nonstop. It is. You do seem to have the all those qualities and in the work that you're doing with TART with like almost daily streams. I mean everything else, and I mean you're putting in the work to make it happen. So yeah, absolutely. I agree. I definitely agree with that one. I guess there's a lot of things that like I kind of see. There's to kind of bring it to the meaning forward a little bit now. We kind of have to like we're wrestling often with like how we forge ourselves. So like what's an individual? Well, an individual is fundamentally someone who's not divided, who's unified, which you don't have competing distractions, right? Because I mean, everybody's going to have some at some level, and that's like it's kind of what it is. And then you're moving forward, or you're making some form of movement. I'm not going to say it's forward because sometimes it can be to the side or even backwards, but over the narrative of someone's life, they tend to make it out a little bit better, or you can see their meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And so just this is my little funny thing, because when you're actually forging metals and stuff, you have to like bring in the alloys, but different types of materials to make it into one. So that's kind of like the general thing there. And I think now like what were the major competing things here that you had to like what are your materials that you brought into your forge, into your essence of your being, to form, I guess, the first, I'm not going to call it a weapon, I'm going to call it, like, it is a sword though, but to form your first sense of like self.
Oh, I like I like the way you asked that. I think, and see all these memories or lack of memories that I desired, I think, to have popped up. Well, when I say that, yes, it's funny because the ADHD, but there's things like with my dad, my dad being abusive. I didn't hear, son, I'm proud of you, or I'm proud of you, son, or anything like that until early mid 20s, something like that. And now, mind you, my dad was a baseball fanatic, sports fanatic. I was all-state baseball player, all-star football player. Still never heard it. So there were these things that like I always wanted and I longed for that I never got. That never heard. So when my mentor started to actually do those things and invest those things in my life and kind of give me some validation and some approval that no, actually you are in your own right, because all of us do. All of us have an area that we are a badass. Like, and you just have to unlock it. You have to figure out what that is. And I think what that, as far as my first weapon or my first tool, as soon as that was unlocked, it was literally it was the fighter in me. It's like there is no person, no situation, no failure, no anything that's going to stop me. And here's why it's not going to stop me: is I can look in the mirror, and I've always had this ability, and I'm so grateful that I can, because I know I could go down a list of people right now that I know don't do it and can't do it. Is I can look in a mirror and hold myself accountable. I don't need Jim or Pasta or whoever to hold Oz accountable. I don't need that. And I used to coach all my salespeople all the time. If you can't look in the mirror and you can't hold yourself accountable first, there's nobody on this planet that's going to be able to hold you accountable. And guess what? When you have that ability, you can literally look at every opponent, every bit of adversity, every challenge, and say, no, I'm good. I can take you. Why? I've already looked in the mirror today. I know where my weaknesses are. I know what I can and can't handle. And here we go. Let's do it. But if you're blind to all that and you don't understand where the chinks in your armor are at, where your weaknesses are that day, that week, that month, they're going to eat you for dinner. They're going to eat you for dinner or breakfast, whatever you prefer.
I'm a Brenner guy, actually. Breakfast for dinner. I should.
I'm down for that too.
Thing there. I need to make like a little Brenner thing now. Anyway, so one thing I want to dial in on is this idea of is self accountability, because like it's huge. Like how did you make that, like make that into yourself?
Good question. So it's kind of a combo. The first time, which I've read this, and you and I have talked about this book, I read this book, I think 23 times. It's either, because one book I've read 13 times, it was 23. It's either 13 or 23. Again, I have it in my notes because I do little marks in the book every time I read it. But
Which book is this again? Because it's not the Bible.
That's 12. That's only 2 times. The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell.
Gotcha.
And yes, I'm an atheist, and I will endorse John Maxwell. He's a beast. He's a beast. It was a combination of that and a couple of the laws in that book. And then again, my mentor, I remember the first, and this was early on, this is before we're like doing business together. And he just came up to me one day and he was like, so what'd you do to get better today? And I was like, what? Like, I mean, this is early on. Now, mind you, just a short 6 months ago, maybe 6, 7, 8 months ago, my version of me getting better the next day is buying more drugs. Like, what are you talking about? And he was like, no, what did you do to get better today? And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I didn't. I wasn't being dumb. Like, I was ignorant to it. Like, I have no idea what you're saying right now. He was like, what did you do to make you a better version today than you were yesterday? And I was like, well, and it did. That's all he had to say. It hit me like again, slap in the face. I was like, nothing. I ate a good meal, and uh, and I remember him telling me, this is what you need to do, either in the morning or before you come to work, or before you go to bed at night. At least do this. Like, I want you to do more, but at least do this on a busy, busy, busy day that you can't do anything else. At least do this. Read a chapter. Listen to 5 minutes of an audio. Do something. And that's where it started. And now I've adopted that in essentially every phase of my life, where it's like, what have I done today to make sure that I'm better than yesterday? And here's how I know that it's true, and I'm not blowing smoke, because sometimes you feel like you've convinced yourself that you're doing something really, really well, and you actually suck at it. You ever done that before? And there's times where I
interview,
feel
probably.
no, you're doing great. Uh, and I have two recent ones that there were times that I felt like maybe I'm teaching my teams this, and I actually have no idea what I'm talking about because I suck at it. Maybe I actually suck at it when I think I'm really, really good at it. So right before the COVID shit happened, I had my annual performance review and compensation review, and they were doing a new format, but they didn't tell me what the new format was. So I kind of always already thought it was unfair, me going into it. Right. There's like, well, I would like to be able to prepare for this, because you guys know I like to prepare, I like to have notes. So I had no idea. So I put my own little business plan type thing together, reports and everything. And I did the good, the bad, and I put the ugly on there. Like, this is where I know that I suck. This is where I know I'm terrible. And I remember telling myself, I'm going to go in here and either I'm going to look like a boss, or I'm going to look like an ass, because I actually, when I say this, have no idea what I'm talking about. Right. And I get in there, and they went, which I thought was beautiful, because I thought they were going to have me go first. They went first. And they're like, here's all the, Austin, these are all the things you're amazing at, what you bring to the company that we appreciate, and this is why we're at where we're at, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, cool. And then they get going down to the negatives, and I start to cringe a little bit, because I'm like, I don't know what's going to say. And actually, the further down the list they go, I'm like, and not because there weren't any areas, but line for in almost an exact order, they hit exactly what I had put on paper. On everything that I saw when I looked in the mirror as a professional, where I still lacked, where I sucked, where I need to get better, and all that. And I remember when it was like, is there anything, that you wanted to present? I said, there was, but I'm not now. Because whether you give me a raise or agree with me or not, the fact that I looked myself in the mirror, and when I wrote these things down and then typed them out, and then you came with the same list, I'm good. You do what you want with it. But there is, and you can see, like, I didn't make that up. That is your sales director right there. I brought that to you. I had no idea what you had on paper. And if that doesn't tell you what kind of leader I am, there's nothing else that I can tell you. And then there's that. And then with pasta, it's one of those things, because even with TART, there's times I question it, where it's like, okay, this isn't sales. It's still, there's entrepreneurial parts of it. It's not sales anymore. And even recently, he said, Oz, you're one of the few that when you do something wrong, or you F something up, or you need to get better at something, I see you up at 4 a.m., bro. Like, I can see it. You remember that? We can see each other's accounts. Like, I see you up working and doing these things. Nobody else is doing that. Nobody else is taking the time to do that. And I literally watch you take notes when I tell you you're effing something up, instead of getting mad at me and like, oh, F you, pasta, you don't know how to do this. But no, you're over there with okay, cool. When he needs it done by. And so that's a very long-winded answer to your question, but I think it's important that people know that you not only do you need to believe it, but you need to have accountability to that accountability to know you're actually doing it right.
Yeah. So I'm going to push back just a little bit, just a little bit. All right. So how, I guess then, like as you're forging yourself and you're forging this aspect of accountability, right? And you're pulling away these distractions and stuff like that. And maybe I'm just regurgitating what you're saying too. Like there is something there that, maybe people can dial in on it. It's like, well, how do I hold myself to that 5 minutes of audiobook a day? How do I hold myself to that one chapter a day? Even, and here's what I would say, like, just as you put it, like, even when you had the worst day of your life. I mean, how, like, is it motivational? Like, is it just, or do you, like, how do we create just a routine out of that?
Yes. So, yes, the routine or the cadence. It's
Mhm.
the I'm gonna grab this real quick. I know we're
Yeah,
recording,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it's
You're good, man.
this this book, as far as creating good habits, and this book talks about cadence and developing discipline in your life to where you can be great, not good, great. That's where it kicks in. So first, 4 disciplines of execution.
Still gotta get that on my list.
This book, if you don't read this, I don't care if you've been an entrepreneur for years. I don't care if you're just looking into being an entrepreneur. If you read this and it doesn't whoop you on your ass, you probably shouldn't be in business. That's point blank. You shouldn't be, because this is all about accountability. X to Y by win is the greatest equation in this book that I use all the time in business, and I use it with TART in my own. Whether it's scheduling shows, debates. Now this big debate tournament, I have X to Y by wins. This is what I need done. This is how we do it. When is the deadline? And you always have that cadence. Now with a personal kind of study time or improvement time or whatever. And you'll probably laugh when I say this, because I still laugh when I say this. Most of us take at least one shit a day.
Yes.
Right?
No Angry Birds for you.
Most of us take at least one shit a day. You can be now, look, and this is going to be the old Glenn Ross style Oz coming out here for a minute. If you want to be good at something, you want to be okay at something, then take a shit and play Angry Birds or Candy Crush. If you want to be great at what you do, you want to be the best at what you do, invest in yourself. And invest in yourself doesn't always mean money. It means knowledge. It means wisdom. It means education. It means all those things. And trust me, those 2 years when I was reading those 3 or 4 books a month for 2 years, do you know how many times I want to say, F this, Jim? F this. This is boring. There's so many times. But what I kept thinking about was all the people that told me that because I'm a high school dropout and I don't have a high school diploma and I don't have a college degree, that I won't do this and I can't be this and I can't be this. And that's where I learned to focus on that and focus on the work at hand, the task at hand, which is being better than everybody and dominating the world, right? And not worrying about all the distractions around me. Because guess what? Even if I shut one of them up, the next phase of life, guess what? There's probably 2 more coming that won't shut up.
Yeah. So as we're kind of wrapping up, like the hammering process here of like your first self, right? What were some things, or I want to say your first self, but like an aspect of your life journey? What were some things that weren't hammered in right, like or wrong completely? Because I mean, nothing is perfect. Nothing can fit every
Right.
situation. So what was some of those things that you either intentionally or unintentionally ingrained into the fabric of what you made?
Oh man, the even when I read through the outline, and I don't even think you asked that specifically, but this popped in my head. Um, but there was something that made this pop in my head, and that's why I thought it was ironic, because I couldn't remember whether you did or didn't ask it, but it kind of led to the same thought.
Yeah.
Through one, so I have a bipolar diagnosis. One thing about bipolar and ADHD people, and then you combine that with a belief in a Christianity that's all about loyalty, and loyalty is preached, especially the kind of church I grew up in, where it's like it was always it's all about covenant and loyalty and covenant and loyalty. I can't tell you how many times I got hurt and how many times I just got effed over, man, because I would trust people that I had no business trusting. I would invest in the people that I had no business investing in. And not because they were like me, a dropout or anything, but they had a pattern of taking advantage of people, stealing from people, manipulating people. I didn't have that. The only track I had was I did drugs and liked to party, but I wasn't out there, stealing and manipulating people, so that was, if there was one thing that I had to learn the hard way, was, man, I want to trust people so bad. I do. I'm a good dude. I want so bad to trust people. And I had to learn the hard way over and over and over again that you just can't, as much as you want to, you have to make them earn that trust. They have to earn that trust and earn the ability to be able to have access to certain parts of your life, certain parts of your knowledge, certain parts of your experience. Don't just give that shit away, because there's tons of people that will just take advantage of it. And that's exactly what happened to me. And it took me years to learn it.
So a little bit of naivety there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, hey,
Yep.
it happens. It happens.
Yep. Well, and that's what it's ironic, because I am very, and I don't mean this in an atheist sense. I mean this for my street smarts, my ability to logically process, like situationally, like if I feel a certain way or I'm watching something, it's like, nope, this isn't good. Let's bounce, But then when it came to people, like if they, tugged on a heartstring, or they had a similar story to me, or whatnot, it was like, oh, let's, yeah, I feel bad for them, So yeah, it's very naive, and that kind of that blind faith. Where it's like, well, I'm just going to blindly have faith that you're a good human being, like I'm a good human being, and we're just going to be good human beings together, and I'm going to help you. So, yeah.
All right. So I think that's actually perfect. So now we can kind of transition a little bit into the sword, which is really going to get into self-empowerment, confidence, and judgment a little bit. Because that's kind of what it is. So let's start the transition. I needed like 5 drinks just then. So
every transition.
gotta press another button. Okay, so for me, can I highlight the frame the sword? So like you made yourself into like kind of like the sword, and in some regards, and like yes, it's biblically inspired, because I am kind of a Christian, but it doesn't matter here. And the reason why it doesn't matter is because everybody has relevant stories to this, and somebody's going to find meaning hopefully from your story. Actually, I know they will. So the sword to kind of, and there's this kind of motif throughout the Bible, and I'm sure you've read it a few times, where like language and our words are kind of like swords, and if you use them properly, we know what that can do. I think is the right way to kind of look at it, right? So, I often question the use of it, but it's a great sense of empowerment and confidence, like in a lot of ways. So I often pose the question: is how do you use the sword? Are we using it right? And
Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, you're good. You go ahead, man.
Are we using it right? I think could be objective, but then follow up on that and say each person has kind of their own custom fitted sword, which is if to be put my former Christian hat on and because I do actually agree with parts of this when it comes to how we speak, how we talk, especially self-talk. That I think there's so much power in that, and there's sometimes it's subliminal, sometimes it's in your face, and it's very real, right? But I'll give you the well. There's two things that I either do or did when I was on, like, I don't have to drive to work anymore, but when I had my drive to work, whether it was my half-hour drive, hour drive, 2-hour drives, wherever it was, whatever area or store I was going to, I'd get in my car, and 50 Cent has a song called I'm the Man.
Yeah.
Right. The first thing I did, now the rest of the car drive, I'd listen to whatever I wanted, but it was procedure. It was Oz procedure. And I would look at myself in the rear view mirror, and people think this is corny all they want, but this is why I was boss and nobody else was. And that can sound cocky, but it is what it is. The fruit, it bears fruit, right? And I remember I would look in the mirror on the parts where the hook came up, the course came up, and I would repeat that back. For me, I would never say that to anybody else. Like, I'm joking about now as far as I'm the boss, like, but to me, I would never say that to my employees. But that was me getting that mind state. Like, I'm the man. Like, to me, I don't care if you think it. I don't care if anybody else sees it, thinks it, whatever. To me, when I walk in this building, I'm the man. I'm the man, and I'm going to do everything I can to win. I'm a winner, and that's all I'm going to do. Then the other thing I do, and I actually still do, because now it's just habit, and I can't break it, probably even if I tried, is while I'm brushing my teeth, I ask myself, what are you going to do today to make yourself better than you were yesterday? To challenge myself. Again, more self-accountability. Instead of what did you do? Because that's lazy. If you're never planning ahead, that's just laziness. What did you do? Nothing. Time's out. We got to go to bed. No, what are you going to do today to make yourself a better version than you were yesterday? So as far as going back to the sword and the words, when you're talking to yourself, whether it's looking at yourself in the morning, and look, none of us are pretty in the morning, so it's not like you got to pretend anything, but ask yourself some of those key questions that are going to help to set your day or your week with the right trajectory. Instead of, well, I got to do this week, and I got to do that this week. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, look, great job. You just started your day and your week off with negativity. Let's see how the rest of it goes. So find the good things, find the positive things to focus on and talk about, and remind yourself that in your own right, like I said earlier, in your own right, somewhere you are a badass, and that's what you have to focus on. So when it comes to that, and words being that sword, you can cut yourself very easy, and you can use it to cut yourself, or you can use it to fight through all the bullshit that day has to offer, and still focus on, I'm better today than I was yesterday, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, I like that, man. I really do. Like, there's a lot. Like, and again, like, what I love about like symbology is it morphs to different people's perceptions in a lot of ways, and so it's really helpful. Because it's easy for people to relate to that sometimes, right? And so,
yeah. And can I say one more thing?
Please.
And I'm gonna show my age here.
We already know you're old.
Somebody in the string. No, I'm kidding. The other thing I think about when you use that analogy with the sword as far as words, or people, it's that I am this, or I am, because so many people say I am a victim, or I am a loser, or I everything up, or and they just make all of these claims. And the atheist Christian community, we know what the claims mean. You have to have evidence. So show me evidence that you're a loser, because I don't think you have that. You may have made some poor decisions, but that doesn't make you worthless. That doesn't make you any of that. And now, to show my age, what I actually think about that in that moment is I think, and I used to do this even when I was a little boy, and I don't do it anymore as a grown man, but it's He-Man. Through all the nonsense and all the bullshit going on, he would take that sword no matter what. And it was, obviously, by the Castle of Grayskull, I am He-Man, but you don't have to go through the Castle of Grayskull. You can just say, I am this because I'm deciding to be this. I am, boom, whatever it is your name is, whatever, and you decide that. You get to make the choice that you are this or you are that. And even if you're at your worst, start talking to yourself like you're a millionaire, like you're everything that you want to be 30 years from now. Start talking to yourself and treating yourself like that person. Because the minute you start doing that, everybody has to start treating you and talking to you like that. But as long as you give people the permission to talk to you like you're that old person, like I even tell my kids this: conduct permitted is conduct taught. As long as you teach people that they can treat you a certain way and talk to you a certain way, you're dead in the water. So you draw the line and tell them, nope, this is my sword, and this is how I use my sword. And if you don't like it, I'll use a sword to cut your.
Okay. So we'll look at this for a brief moment here, and we'll look at. I think because there's two ways, right, that I guess I can frame this. Is one is the internal use of said sword, metaphorical sword, right, and also is the external use of this sword, right. So preferably, I prefer to keep it sheathed. I think a sheathed sword is the right sword, right? I mean, it's not saying that you're never going to say anything, right? But it's more like you're choosing your words a little bit better. So like what I kind of heard like is like I agree with you on this notion that like the sword is not your identity. Like, and I know it may be confusing, like it may sound confusing, right? But it is a sense of empowerment. It represents it's almost this mix of a Jungian persona, but also more of like it represents kind of like this aspect of what you've made at this time in your life. And by the way, you can kind of go through these cycles very quickly or take a very long time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you carry around the sword, and like now, like you're empowered, right? You're noble. Because that's really what back in the day, back in not ancient Rome, but France, pre French Revolutionary France. There was the nobles, like the nobility, and they carried swords. And it was again like it's like this kind of like this notion of nobility. It's notion that if you didn't have one, you weren't noble or something like that. But I'm kind of trying to stretch this out a little bit. And so you're using it to interact with yourself and also interact with others from a position of strength, I think. Right? I don't need to draw my sword. I have it here, yes, but I don't need to draw it because I know who I am. This is just a mere representation of who I am. Because remember, earlier we did this.
Yep.
I love that for some reason.
Well, and along with what you said there, real quick, if I could, I guess tie it in a pretty little bow, is I'm not afraid to use my sword on me. I use my sword on me every single day, and I use it to make me better, to sharpen me, whether it's mentally, emotionally, physically, whatever it is. I'm using that every day. So like you said, my sword's right here, and everybody's going to know my sword's right here. Why? Because I use it on me first. I don't want to have to draw it, but if you would like me to, or you force me to, is what I mean by that, then we can have that discussion. But just know it's there, and I'm sharpening it all the time because I'm always sharpening me first. And I can break it out, in a defending myself point of view. But then also when you become a leader, sometimes you have to draw it out to show them, like, guys, no, this is what I do. Like, I want you to do what I do and be the example. Like I didn't in this context, I didn't draw it to do harm or to prove something. It was to model and show, look what I do with my sword.
Yeah.
Look at the time and the effort and the energy that I put into making this thing beautiful and successful. Whatever adjectives you want to put there. But there's so many ways that you can use that analogy that are very impactful. When it comes to the sword.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually now getting into the external, right? It's like how we relate to people. So like I can sit here from this position and I would probably argue, yes, you self actualized yourself on the ego side, but you've removed yourself from the community. And what I mean by that is you lash out against those who aren't like you. Who you lash out. I mean, I think both you and I will share this experience. Those self-righteous Christians, right? Like, oh, I'm not a sinner, but okay, man. Like, it's clear here that you've made something, you think you've made something, and you're applying it, but now, like, instead of using it to help free other people or to help break their own change or something like that, you're just using it like instead of an inspiration, it's damnation, and that's a
Mhm.
problem, a huge one. And that's how I think you can kind of transcend a little bit this leadership plane a little bit. And I guess what have been some major strategies for you? I mean, not just like pulling out the sword, but maybe like using the sword to either and I use this as carefully as I can, maybe handing your sword to someone else. Um, don't but not doing it naively, right?
Yeah.
You have to be very careful, right? Because you're opening yourself up. And I think every leader here, anyone who's a leader will acknowledge at some level leadership. If you lead, you will be portrayed at some level, just because you don't know everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Um, and like, how do you do that? And how do you help them break their own chains of self doubt or anything really?
Um, well, without taking an app, because as a leader, if we're using the sword as the model, that the practice and the role play and like those are my favorite tools as far as helping people get better and improve. And I'll actually tell you, I would never hand my sword to anyone. I will help you develop your sword to make it look like mine and work like mine. Um, but I'm not going to hand you my sword. I don't trust you with my sword because that means I'm defenseless. You know what I mean? In that regard, I'm not going to do that. There's other than my wife, there's nobody I'd probably trust to do that if we were actually talking about an external physical sword. Uh, but there's even the business swords where I know there's certain things that I've learned
Mhm.
that I will help you and I will help you develop as much as I can, but I wouldn't just freely give it to you because I've worked so hard to earn that. Right. So like what I like to do is to give a very brief example is I always had once a month had a book assignment ready for all of our leaders. And they're like, well, can we get together every week or every 2 weeks and do this? I'm like, well, no, you only want to do that because you want to hear what everybody else has to say because you don't want to read the damn book. That's why you want to do that. I expect you all to read it on your own time because, again, whether it's sword or taking notes, or whatever, I want you to form that and learn and process it because you're reading it and you're taking it and you're digesting the information. So, again, going back to sharpening the sword and then making it look good and polishing it and I want you to do that because I've already read this book a number of times. I want you to do it on your own. So there was things like that. Then what I would have them do is they would have to each one of them, whether they want to do it video or just audio recorded, they had to give a speech on the book, like a 5-minute speech on the book. Why? It's verbalizing it. You have to speak it. You have to say it out loud because that's when I know you actually got it. when you can talk about it freely and you don't need 20 pages of notes and all that. I can tell when you're reading notes or you're reading the back cover of the book versus when you're speaking from the heart and like you've read this shit and you're like, oh man, this is huge, this is great, so on and so forth. So hopefully that answers your question. Those
Oh
are
yeah,
some
yeah,
of the
absolutely. And as I think as you're kind of starting to see, like these symbols are starting to overlap a little bit, which is exactly kind of the way I kind of want it to be at some level, because they are like it's a
Mhm.
just a way that we can kind of talk about some of these things too. Um, I guess before we move on to the next one, what have been some swords that you've had to throw away?
Damn it, Jim. Um, when this one's going to, well, you know what? No, this will apply to both business and even in my um, walking into atheism. It was just at different times in my life. When I first got into sales leadership, I thought that I was supposed to be Glenn Gary, Glenn Ross, like ABC, coffees for closers, and I won't say all the other stuff he said, but I thought that that's what was leadership, sales leadership anyway. And boy, was I humbled,
Yeah.
you know, and, um, and I realized real quick, you don't beat the brows until morale improves. That's not what you do. You set it, you set an example. Speed of the leader is speed of the team.
Yep.
If you want to effectively lead a team, you have to remember that. And it's probably another reason that I am always 100 miles an hour. Because that was, one of those. If I'm indoctrinated in anything right now, it's that speed of the leader, speed of the team. But I won't change that. So there was that where I had to relearn that because I thought, yeah, that sword doesn't work. That like cussing at people and telling them they're pieces of that's not people don't respond to that anymore. Not that they ever did, but so there's that. And then even within atheism, I remember, we talked about a little bit of this, but I came out and for me, I was lied to for 30 something years. I wasted 30 something years. Now I'm pissed because I do value my time. Especially now as an entrepreneur, then as an entrepreneur, my time is valuable. You wasted my time. I'm pissed. And not only did you waste my time, you wasted my time on what I now see to be make believe. Now I'm even more pissed. So when I came out of the gates, literally my screen name when I started my first YouTube channel was the Atheist Asshole. And I wanted everybody to know I'm pissed. And if you're a Christian, I hate you. And I'm the asshole. Right. And now looking back, not only was it the wrong sword, it was a sword that shouldn't even ever been created. and and again, I'm for Pasta Mike and in the community as a whole, but especially Pasta, I'm grateful because it helped me get through that and throw that sword into the fire and just melt the whole shit away. But yeah, those are probably the two that I look back now were the two biggest red flag moments as far as not having the right sword or equipment or whatever.
Okay. Perfect, man. So we'll go ahead and transition now to the pin, and this is also one of my favorites. All right. So what do you think the pin represents? Or have you seen all of my videos yet? There's only like 4 of them, 3 of them.
I thought we were going to start writing some rhymes. Is that what we're doing?
Maybe later.
I did. I saw your intro, and then I only got to see about half of the. Was it this?
You're
Second
good,
throw?
man.
It doesn't matter, but whatever.
Really bad video for me, but it's good. Gotta start somewhere.
Oh, hey, have you seen ours? Our first? Oh my God, it's a train wreck.
Exactly.
You're doing way better than we were on our first episodes. I'll tell you that right now.
I learned
Hands
from the
down.
best. What can I say?
You're welcome. Cool.
All right.
So
Writing
the
in the
pen.
pen. What do you think?
So what do we, I think this is, for me, this would be I'm writing. This is what I'm going to write down about my experiences in my life. And that way, once I'm gone, whether it's my children or my grandchildren or my great grandchildren, that they will be able to at least be able to read and get a glimpse of what I went through, what I experienced, and hopefully trying to help them and leave some little bit of a memory or a legacy or, something behind.
I completely agree with that. Like, seriously, because I see the pen as like this great mechanism by which you can leave something for it's literally, like, to me, it almost embodies like the notion of Achilles. Like, he's immortal. I mean, granted, like, I'm sorry, like, not everything survives time, but it survives for a little longer, right? Because I know you are the CEO of mythicism, so but the pen is definitely useful, and also, like, I think it's funny because, like, earlier in one of your stories you were talking about reading, right? So you have to read in order to gain knowledge. So, like, if you don't read, then you don't learn. And writing is, as you alluded to earlier, really focused, right?
Mhm.
Like, it focuses that. And so I guess, what are some major things that you're working, like, you're writing on, essentially, you're writing for right now? Like, if you were to place yourself from this legacy perspective, or for just general, like, helping people, like, what are you writing?
Man, you might
It
get
doesn't
me in
have to
my
be a real book,
feels.
by the way.
You might actually get. It doesn't happen very often anymore, but you might actually get me in my feels tonight, Jim. I and that's a good. By the way, I have weird grunts when I'm trying to hold back emotions. I
I had a Marine. I had a Marine. I was in Navy JRTC, and we were doing PT for, like, one of our classes back in high school. And he said there's only 3 acceptable noises that come in. One's grunting. Actually, it's 2. It's one's grunting and one's farting. And farting because you're grunting too hard.
yeah, I agree with that. But what am I writing? And I know you don't need. I know you don't mean specifically a book, but that's actually one of the things I've been talking to Dr. Josh about is beginning to write a book about my story, because there's a lot that, just because of time, we could have been here for 6 hours just talking about the details of what I've seen and what I've been through and all that. So that's actually one of the things I'm working on. He's helping me with that to write a book well, one, because my memory sucks, and my dad keeps telling me, he's like, son, you understand that, like Alzheimer's and all that shit is, like, very prevalent in our family. Like, start writing that shit before you forget it all. So I'm doing it for that. And I just know there's a lot of people, whether it's the atheist, the lack of belief part of it, and going through that, or just the coming from nothing and turning yourself into something. That part of the story would help somebody, so that that's, part of the legacy I can leave here on this planet, before I go. Obviously with my my family, especially my children, I always want them to know that I always did everything that I could do to make myself the best version of Austin that I could be for them, for my wife, for my kids. That I always did that. And then aside from that, one thing, in the atheist community, to leave a, legacy or a stamp or whatever, and probably 4 or 5 years from now, people will forget that Pasta or myself, individually or collectively, did it. But we give and give all the time to our community, whether it's money, microphones, complete podcast setups, like those kind of things, where people, if we stopped doing TART tomorrow, they would still remember they loved people. They loved helping people. So there's that. And then I can't wait for COVID to be like done and over. So I actually, this red wristband, every once in a while I get asked about it when I have it on live. It's called, well, it says dirty work, do good, be good. And it's a homeless, I don't know if you want to call it outreach, because that's what the church is called, but we'll call it that. Homeless outreach that I do every week when COVID is not a thing. And it blew up, and it broke my heart when everything got shut down, because they loved it. And they stopped going to the church functions because we showed up with the same food and backpacks with socks and everything. And like, we showed up with all that same stuff, but guess what we did different than all of the churches. And the city I live in is called the City of Churches, by the way. We just hung out with them for hours. I'd sit there, chill with them, smoke a cigarette, chop it up, talk about family, talk about, friends, talk about what's going on. I don't care. I'm in Fort Wayne. I dox myself all the time. What's going on in Fort Wayne? And they loved it. They loved it, and I can't wait to get back to it. So again, another one of those things where when I'm gone and people talk about what I wrote with my pen, with my life, they'll be able to say, you know what? Yeah, he did this in business and he made X amount of money and he did all these things. But actually, what he did the most was people. He did people. And he understood people, and he loved people. And if that, at my funeral, whatever that looks like, if that's what people say about me over and over and over again, is that Oz just loved people. Oz just loved helping people. But that's my legacy and what I've written, and the example that I leave for my kids. I will die a 100% happy man.
That makes a lot of sense, man. Like, I liked how you kind of started to not only like, it's not only like what you're writing, which you sound like you're working with Dr. Josh, he wrote a really interesting book on Old Testament slavery. I think you have it there in the background. Yeah, that one. As a Christian, I don't deny it. I think that's a really dumb argument. A really dumb argument. You're going to go down and you're not going to win.
Did you hear that? Did you guys hear that? Listen to him. He's a smart man.
I'm a really dumb person, actually. Anyway, so from like this.
Hold on, Jim. We were just talking about the sword. That was not very good use of your sword.
Actually, it was. It's humility.
No, you said you're a dumb man. That's not humility.
That's humility and self-deprecating humor, actually.
Okay, as long as we have self-deprecating humor injected, but that's not humility.
Well, I think it's funny that you were talking about the pen and like, yeah, I'm writing this, and then I think it's also funny too that you're forgive the Christian language, right? You're also writing on the other hearts of men and people around you, as you in a way you're imprinting, and like I often wrestle with this idea and like kind of relating the sword and the pen. They're almost made of the exact same thing, because I can use a pen wrong too. Right.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's the, and I had this argument, I guess, if you want to call it, with somebody once. It was to do with hip hop, but it's very online with what you're saying. They were like, well, if something is spoken, it's freestyle, it's off the top, it's this is what you're getting from this person, right? But if it's written, this is what you're getting when it's written. And what we meant by that is, when I go off the top, because I can do both. I can freestyle and I'm even better written than I am freestyling. When I go freestyle, you're getting exactly what's on my mind at that moment, whether it's something in the room, personal situation, circumstance, whatever. But if you and Apostle even said this when I was down in Atlanta with him, he was like, I can already tell the couple times you've written. If I put you, just locked you in a studio for like 6 hours with nothing but beats, a pen, a pad, and a microphone, it would be deadly. Because here's what happens is when you get the pen, you don't have to just, it's not, you don't have to just come up with it as you're going. You get to sit and you get to map it out. You can make notes and reference this and then have draw up all those memories and you do this. But when you're just speaking, you're going off the particular situation, the circumstance, the atmosphere, everything you're in right then and right there. So it's so formidable. Both of them are so formidable, but they can impact you from two completely different trajectories, and can be equally as powerful and equally as damaging depending on what you're doing with the atmosphere or what you're taking from the experiences, the memories, to write them on paper with the pen. Hopefully I've made sense of that, but that's how I described it even with hip hop. It is two very different things.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I agree with you on that one. And so like you sit there and like when you write something down, no matter what it is, it's very focused. And I think you have to be very careful what you write down too,
Absolutely.
because it's so focused and it can be very dangerous, because not only are you writing for yourself, but you could be potentially writing for someone else. And if you're not cognizant, consider your audience, type of thing,
Mhm.
you're not always going to hit where you need to hit. And it's an art in many ways. And then, kind of bringing this into like some cases, like full circle a little bit, uh, with reading, right? I think it's important what books, like the order of books you read, right? So for example, if I read, and this is just me, right? So if I have two books in front of me and I want to read either The God Delusion or something that confirms Christianity, for example, right? The question here is, do I read what confirms first and then read The God Delusion? Or do I read The God Delusion and actually really try to understand it and capture that the messages that are in there from Dawkins, and really understand that, and then read this other book and see, and and understand those points too, because you have to do understanding for both. I think it's interesting. And so I know I just pontificated a little bit on my own show, but I can do that occasionally.
No, you're good. It's a good point, and I would say, and again, this will be anecdotal, but I would challenge anybody and everybody to go opposite of your belief first. Like challenge your own belief first before you start trying to confirm it.
Mhm.
Because if you just stack everything up against your own bias, that tells me you're not actually looking for truth. And I'm not just talking about religion. I'm talking that could be business models, that could be accounting models, that could be sales practices, sales processes and systems that they could apply to anything. Just because you believe something is the way to do it doesn't mean it is. So always challenge your bias. Then if
Mhm.
you walk away and it's still like, cool, like I still believe this, then good for you.
Yeah, you'd be in a better place, like in a better way to defend whatever it is that you believe, right? Because you can actually, I think it in a way, you kind of make like a little mini, we'll call it a dagger, right? Just for fun, to keep with the theme, right? Because then the dagger, you can sit there and kind of like, it's a way to empathize, it's a way to empower yourself to kind of prepare for the different arguments. And again, I'm just using the dagger for not for the sneaky purposes, but just for the simple purposes of metaphor. Um, and so let's see. And then along these lines too is this concept of understanding versus knowing.
Okay.
What do you think constitutes understanding versus knowing?
Mm. I think it's don't think there's an easy way to explain this. So, understanding if, like, let's, if I go back to my walking into atheism, and I now have an understanding. I now have an understanding that I'm an atheist. Like I understand it. I understand that I've walked away from this religion, and I'm in many regards I'm paying a price for it because family, friends, um, that kind of thing. So I had that understanding. It wasn't actually until I became um, okay with my decision and understood why I made my decision that it is a justified decision that I now knew that that was the right decision for me. So I think that's the best way for me to explain one of my mental processes on it. Was like,
Okay.
okay, I understand that I did this. I have an
Mhm.
understanding that I chose atheism. Then fast forward months later, whatever. Okay, now I know. Now I know why I did this. I know why I made this decision
Mhm.
to do it. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
that's
yeah,
that,
yeah.
that's a tough one to work around.
Yeah, and I think depending on how you sequence it, you can come away with different things. And for me, I kind of flip it a little bit. So like for example, I say I have a commanding knowledge of a topic, right? Like pick a topic, and I have a like whatever that commanding knowledge is I know it, but I have an understanding of it when I know how and when and why it's relevant. So like I'm able to I have a commanding understanding of that material now, not because I just know it. I plundered through a book or something like that in the words of Nietzsche, but now like I have an understanding of it. I know how to use it in a context. And so I mean that's just me because I kind of get that from Jonathan Vervaeke in the Meaning Crisis, Awakening from the Meaning
Okay.
Crisis. He talks about like what is understanding.
Okay. Well, and if I understood this,
Yeah,
and I'll keep it brief, the knowing versus understanding. So in that same situation, I would say that I knew, um, I knew that I had walked away. I now
yeah,
know that I'm an atheist, like I said at that point, and then understanding the now my position. I guess is kind of what I heard you saying
yeah.
is, and once I got out of the angry atheist
The angry face.
part of the atheist asshole phase, I now understood. I now understand my effect or my potential effectiveness because of my prior knowledge of Bible, faith, God, everything. So I have the knowledge that I'm an atheist, but now I have the understanding that in my atheism, because of my prior experience in sharpening that sword, can now be used over here.
Exactly, exactly. Or not use at all because like you have to say, no, I can't do this, or maybe I'm being naive or any number of things. And so, it helps, I think, when everyone has and again, just using my language here, which I think your original was just fine. And again, like I think at some point we're arguing semantics. I know you used that line today because I listened to your thing today, your show. Uh, but
Okay, the Christian said semantics.
yeah,
What's up your sleeve, Jim?
um, but typically speaking, it's just one of those things that like Nietzsche and one of it, I think I don't remember which book it is, but he talks about like really knowing things versus like reflecting on them. You reflect an idea, it means you don't understand it. You don't know the ins and outs of it. You don't know how it's relevant. Versus knowing a little bit more about it and actually experience like the experiential knowledge that comes with understanding at some
No,
level.
it's good. No,
Um,
that's good. That's great.
and so and I would say a lot of people, it doesn't matter who you are, have a really reflecting understanding of a lot of different things for any number of reasons. I have mine. I know I'm pretty sure you have a few, but we're not going to get into that. So, um, well, now we've talked about the three symbols, right, all together. And what do you think? And they're all bounded by this one little thing in the center. Hang on, let me pull us off screen real quick. but that is the crown, right? And so we're going to transition to that now. All right. So the crown is what binds us all together. And I don't think this is going to be a very long topic because I think you hit on it so well in a lot of different things in which, I mean, I really I just think you hit on it really well. And so like it's both an inward and an outward type of thing, as like many of the other symbols are here. So I'll let you kind of take what you think, how you perceive it, and we'll go forward from there.
Yeah, my and reading through the notes and then just through conversation, the way you presented or teed that up, my my perspective or my approach that would be you. Well, we all are going to have we all have a story. We all have our experience. We all have the things that have forged us to where we are today or where we'll be tomorrow, as you're going through that process. Um, and I will say, and that's why, as I was thinking, I was trying to do the Calvinist thing and suppress feelings for a minute. But I said a minute ago, Jim might get me in my feels because when I start thinking about a lot of this and I really start to dig into it, sometimes I do forget a lot of the shit that I went through and a lot of the pain, because I don't have to deal with it anymore, and when I have to remember what has got me to where I'm at, the emotions or the tears are not victimhood. It is gratefulness. And part of it's even pride that I fought and I fought and I fought and I kept fighting. Um, so that crown, and this is coming from an atheist, that no, the crown means nothing to me as far as God, Jesus, crown, King of Kings, nothing like that. Okay.
I
But I
wasn't.
appreciate, I know you, I didn't think you were, but I think some people that listening may think that, but even as an atheist, that crown is still a symbol. It's still a symbol. And for me, when I see that in context of everything else that Jim has brought up in the interview and in the conversation, as far as forging all these things together, it is, it's all the bullshit, and I'll speak for me as the individual. It's all the bullshit that I set myself up for, that I made all the bad decisions, but then did all the grinding and went and did all the sharpening and all the melding, and I did that, and I worked on that, and I put the time in, I put the effort in, and I kept working, and not just that, but then with the relationships that I had and building this and building this. And then when we get to the sword and perfecting how I use my words and how I use my words to treat people, how I use my words to treat myself. Um, and then the pen, using the pen to leave, not just a legacy for today, but for the future, for my kids. And what does that look like for them or the other people that may one day actually care what I had to say, but that I made an impact on people while I was here. What I see that crown is for me is, Oz, you you like you did it. You went through the fire. And that's Jim asked me, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but I'll say, Jim asked me before the episode, which intro do you want? And I was like, no, I want the fire. I want the fire. Because when you've been through it, and you felt it and it's burnt and it's hurt, but yet you are here today, and then we're going to put a crown on that shit to want to bound all that together and say, this is what made you a king or a queen or a boss or whatever, because you did all of that. That's what that means to me, is that binds all that together and says, no, you are approved. You're approved. You're a king. You're a queen. You're approved. And here you are.
That's awesome. Actually, I never thought of it that way. Actually, it's funny like when you do some of these things, because people can reveal different aspects of this. That it's like the crown becomes like this, in a sense, this accomplishment. I really appreciate you sharing, you giving me that insight into that. It's pretty awesome. Yeah, because I was just gonna go like, well, leadership and stuff like that, because the crown is heavy and you have to take responsibility, in which you kind of covered and all that too. So,
But I'll say, and all that's fair. All that's fair, Jim.
yeah,
And what I would say is, if you're a leader, you already know that. Like you already
great.
know that. And what a lot of people don't realize, to get to that level of leadership, to be able to wear that crown that is heavy, absolutely, you have to do all the other shit that I just talked about. And I'm not just talking about the drugs and everything, but just the hard work to mend all those things together to where it makes sense to it. Then you get the crown that's heavy. But you don't get that crown that's heavy without all the other bullshit that crown gets put on.
Yep. And that crown is in many regards like this hard mantle that you have to assume, because it's not easy. It's
Yeah.
not, like, none of this is easy, guys. So don't. I mean, don't. I definitely don't want this channel to, like, you guys to come and look at the channel and go, oh, well, I'll just make my own sword, and then all of a sudden, like, yeah, you're gonna do those things, right? Like, don't get me wrong, you will do those for better and for worse, but you just need to understand that in order to do it right, it's gonna suck. Uh,
I was going and I meant to say this earlier, and I forgot. Anybody listens to this, I really simplified my journey just because of time. I could tell you, if you're somebody young that listens to this, don't do what I did. Please, please, please don't do what I did. And it's not the path you want to pick. It's not what you want to do. Don't make your life harder on yourself. Don't do that. Uh, do it the best you can do it. Do it the most proper way you can do it. But if you're at that age where you're already down that path that I was down years ago, um, I can tell you, you can still get the crown. You can still get the crown. And I don't give a shit what anybody else around you says. You can still get the crown. And what Jim was just saying, the reason I wanted to follow up on that is, I'm just going to tell you right now, it's not easy, bro, sis, whatever. It sucks and it hurts, and you're there. I promise you, there'll be nights that you cry yourself to sleep, that you lose friends and you lose family members, and you do all that. But it's worth it. It's worth it, because at the end of the day, when you get the crown, and nobody else can say shit about it, because you busted your ass to get there, and you sacrificed everything you could to get there, it doesn't matter anymore. It does not matter anymore. So don't give up. Don't stop what you're doing, because the crown, you deserve the crown if you earn it, but you have to earn it. So don't give up, but you can do it. Even if you feel like you're effing everything up right now. God damn it, Jim, I told you. I'm sorry.
I wouldn't say anything. Well, normally I start to ask this as well. Like, what are you going to say? Well, you already did that, so I'm going to give you the screen though again, and just tell where people can find you. I'll drop the links in the description and for TART and all that other fun stuff. But where people can find you, how they can get a hold of you, or something like that. And well, this is your little outro, man.
Right after I shed tears. Thanks, Jim. No, but so on Jim's intro, he talked about trying to give the Atheist Roundtable intro the proper introduction. So we'll try this. Guys, I am Oz from the Atheist Roundtable. Oh, there we go. That felt better. But you could. The easiest thing to do is go to tart.live. That's our website. You can find anything and everything TART there. And we have great conversations with atheists, theists of all sorts, all kinds of different beliefs. And we just love to chop it up and have fun with people. And hopefully you can see it and hear it, or at least sense it in listening to this interview tonight. I'm not an angry guy. I'm not a nasty guy. I love to talk to people, and that's how our whole channel is. And the only two things I'll plug is we have, you know what? The first one doesn't matter at all. We're getting ready to have a debate tournament on the 20th of March. So if you are a Christian theist, what have you, and you want to be part of the tournament, email me, austin@tart.live, and there will be a cash prize at the end. And I just ordered a custom, like, boxing or WWF championship belt for whoever wins, and it's going to be a traveling thing because we're going to try to do it like once a month, once every 2 months. But yeah, other than that, Jim, great interview, man. Great format and everything. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate you, man.
All right. So we will see you guys next time in the forge. But for the meantime, go out, get some rest, and start forging whatever you can.